Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Kim Davis. Welcome. It is Tuesday, September the 5th. We are winding down 2023. So much to get to today. I'm super excited that you're joining me. I've been watching a little bit of the Coco golf match and also had a couple technical difficulties, but thank you for hopping in and joining for Chalk Talk today. We've got some really cool things to get to. We are going to talk about the Houston Texans and the start of the NFL season. CJ Stroud's first start as an NFL quarterback, DeMeco Ryans' first regular season game as a head coach in the National Football League. But I'm also going to let you hear from DeMeco and his lovely wife, Jamila, as they were heading into the Texans kickoff event last week. So you'll hear from them as well as DeMeco talking about things like what keeps them up at night heading into week one of the season. The Houston Astros, we'll talk about the Astros as well. I'm excited to have Jeremy Booth join us. He hasn't been on with us in a while, but he knows baseball. He's worked it from a scouting perspective. He has a program where he works with up-and-coming rising stars in baseball. He spends a lot of time. He studies it. He knows it. And so I want to talk to Jeremy about this final month of the NFL season and just some thoughts about the Astros and this AL West pennant race. Speaking of the Astros, they are now tied for first place with the Seattle Mariners as they both won on yesterday. The Rangers are one game behind. The Houston Astros are actually in Arlington playing the Rangers. They won that game 13-6. It was an offensive, really showcase, if you will, for the Astros. The roughest part of the game was that they lost relief pitcher closer Ryan Stanek last night. He took a step making it out, kind of twisted his ankle, and so don't know the extent of it. He was being checked out last night. It was in the ninth inning, and so hopefully Stanek is okay. There's nothing structurally wrong. He's just sore. I say just sore. I know how bad ankle injuries can be. But we're going to talk about all of that and more on this week's show as we get ready to head into the start of the NFL season. College football kicked off last week. Of course, the biggest sports in college football, like them or not, is Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes. They went into TCU, a team that played for the national championship last year, or actually earlier this year, but last season, beat the Horned Frogs in TCU, in Fort Worth, and the entire country is buzzing about Deion Sanders and what he's done with that team. Now, listen, I know it is just one game, but it is a pretty amazing start, right? This team was 1-11 last year. He turned the roster over. Only have 22, I think, players that were on this roster last year. A lot of new players. And he got to work. And so if nothing else, the start's amazing. Now, how will he do? They play Nebraska this weekend. That's a game that they could also win. I don't expect that this Buffalo team is going to be a playoff team this year, but just the excitement and the type of player he's been able to recruit to the program and what they've been able to do just to get started, it's exciting. And so that is obviously the biggest story in college football. There's some other college football stories. I'll get to those a little bit later, but I want to start with first reminding you about some people that always support this show. And one of them is I Love Jinka. You can get your I Love Jinka if you are in Texas at HEB stores. And if you are not, Jinka, the turmeric paste, powder, capsule, veggie caps, any way that you can take it, you should get it because it's great for inflammation. And you can also get it at ilovejinka.com here if you are in Texas and you're going to an HEB store and you want to know where to get it. Here is where you can find it.
Here at HEB in the Healthy Living Department of Probiotics, you can find Jinka 7 days a week.
Yeah. Look at that Jinka sale. Look at that.
You can get Kimmy Treats online at kimmytreats.com or at Sunshine's Vegetarian Deli in Houston, Texas, near the Medical Center. KimmyTreats.com. Go ahead and get your snacks. Get them ready for the weekend so that you can do Netflix and chill. You can watch the games. You can have some healthy, fun snacks. You will not be disappointed. They're not just vegan. They're really very, very tasty. All right. So welcome back. I'm going to let you hear from DeMeco Ryans and his wife, Jamila, as they were heading into the Texans premier event last week. Now, that's the event where the Houston Texans, it's their biggest fundraiser for the foundation, and the foundation, which has been in place as long as the team has, the organization has, does a lot in terms of giving back to the community. And so got a chance to chat with DeMeco and his wife, Jamila, who was one of the event co-chairs for this fundraiser.
We're happy to be here, happy to support.
Before you guys get real serious, what's it like to be able to share this with some of the players, introduce them, meet the fans?
Definitely comes at the right time, having no downtime. Players have been grinding hard throughout training camp, so this is good. Everybody gets to kick back a little bit, just relax, enjoy themselves, and we get to hang out with the fans. You know, the reason why we do it and the people who support us the most, so it's a great event for us.
You heard today that the stadium's almost sold out for the home opener. How does that make you feel about the excitement the team has?
It's been excitement, right? Since we first started, when we first came, got the head coaching job, and the city has just been on fire with excitement, and to know our fans are supporting us, right? Having the stadium sold out for our first home game, we're definitely excited.
So Jamila, they put you to work. I know you're one of the chairs. Talk about that role and what that meant to you.
It was just interesting to be in the room and just to see how passionate Deanna and some of the other ladies were about the foundation and what the work that they put into it, and that people really appreciate it, and that they're able to take the money and do some wonderful things in the city. It was nice to be a part of that and part of that planning community. So.
All right, that was head coach DeMeco Ryans and his wife Jamila headed into the Texans premier event. I don't do a lot of those kickoff event things, but I wanted you to hear from Jamila and DeMeco as they are getting ready for his first season as an NFL head coach, and just a lot of excitement around the team. Not to be confused with this is a process, all right? But I'm super excited. We're going to jump over and talk about some baseball right now. And you see me looking up because I also have the U.S. Open match on. Coco Gauff is playing in the quarterfinals. She won the first set 6-love and is up about to break Ostapenko in the second set, in the first game of the second set. Anyway, I'll keep you updated on Coco Gauff. And I know I have one person that watches that says no one cares about the U.S. Open. That is not true. Later today, this evening, Francis Tiafoe and Ben Shelton, 2 Americans, will play in the night match. That also is something that you should keep your eyes on. But now I'm going to bring in our baseball expert who has carved out a few minutes to talk to us today, Jeremy Booth.
Hi, Kim.
Hang on. Welcome, Jeremy. Welcome. I know that you're always busy. So I appreciate you taking a few minutes to join, to chat with us today. I want to talk about, obviously, the season where it is now, in particular, the Houston Astros. The win they had yesterday, the loss they may have had, we don't know yet, with Ryan Stanek. But when someone asks you now, what are your thoughts about the Houston Astros and how concerned are you that they get to the playoffs? Let's start there.
Well, I think it's a postseason team. I thought it's a postseason team the whole way. I always have concerns, and everybody's going to have concerns when your strategy seems to stay with what you already have after winning a World Series, right? Because everybody else in the league is going to look at it and they're going to go, you know what? We need to get better here. We need to get better here. We still have to win. And if what your main addition is to basically, let's call it a push at first base, whether that was the intention or not, and lock up a reliever for that amount of time, and you don't have a GM in place, doesn't matter if it's Jeff Luhnow, it doesn't matter if it's James Click or Dana Brown, it doesn't matter. That person didn't come in until February. So it's essentially the ownership group, which is his right to kind of stand pat with what he had and go forward. I get concerned when I see as excellent a job as Dusty has done overall, I get concerned when I see Chas McCormick always having a reason not to play. That's the way it comes up to me. It's like Chas is in the lineup. Why is he not playing? I get concerned when I see the entire pitching staff, not one guy, not two guys, not three guys, but the entire pitching staff is off. And over the weekend, I went and made it my responsibility to watch these guys just so I could get a general sense of what the pitching was doing. And I came away with some takeaways, and it seems to be a systemic problem, not a coaching problem. I'm not going there. I'm saying every guy has something that they're doing. And until they correct or get to the root of those issues, they're in a dogfight from here on out.
So let me ask you, let's first start with the Dusty. I know that you, any of us with any sense have a tremendous amount of respect for the work he's done. I know there are questions about the Chas McCormick piece. Let me ask you about another thing that comes up, and I know you and I have talked about it, is Jordan Alvarez. There are some who think he absolutely should only be a DH. But from what you know about baseball, if he is the future of this organization, and this guy is saying, I really, really want to play, how does the manager navigate saying, to heck with what you want, you're going to sit and still have the relationship he has with his players? Is that a fair struggle to try to navigate that relationship?
Ultimately, you have to look no further than Lance McCullers to take a look at how that can play out. Lance McCullers has had an average of about 120-ish innings, maybe over the course of his career. He's missed several full seasons. Obviously, this is one of them. And all of it is traced back to him trying to be a starter. Now, just because somebody can be a starter doesn't mean they should be, right? And his best role for maximum impact on this club has always been in the bullpen. Now, over time, he's earned the right to be in the rotation and try to do it. But when he came up, I and lots of others around the game said he was more like a Rich Harden type. And those of you that don't remember Rich Harden, he was a guy that had really good stuff, kind of a stocky body. Arm action wasn't great, delivery wasn't great, and he was always hurt. And I think what you've got here is a very similar situation with Lance. Well, let's take that to Jordan Alvarez. Just because Jordan Alvarez wants to play left field doesn't mean he should. Just because Jordan Alvarez wants to play center field doesn't mean he should. Jordan Alvarez may want to catch. It doesn't mean he should. What is best for him and what's best for the ball club? Now, you put him out there a day or two a week. Okay, fine, right? Fine. Go keep your legs fresh, keep moving around. But the injury history he's had, it's unique, to say the least, right? And so now it's one where you're starting to have some questions of value where, he's got all this stuff he can do, but if he's always hurt, how are we going to see that? He doesn't seem to get hurt when he's DHing. So maybe let's make him David Ortiz, kind of, and let him play there. Otherwise, put him out there a day or two a week and see what happens. But he shouldn't be going out there every day. That was a bad plan from the beginning. And it's nothing against Jordan Alvarez. He's one of the best bats in baseball, but that's what he is. He's a left-hand hitter.
He is a left-hand hitter, and as you and I know, he can also get hurt not being in left field, like
That's right.
being at home. So
That's right.
I mean, he does have that. So you thought this team was a postseason team. We talked about this is a different position for them than they've been in, and I would argue it's also a very different position for fans, who I think a lot of the media happen to be, right? The Astros fans and media have become very, and I don't put you in this group, spoiled, right? With the fact that they went to the ALCS all those years. That's not typical. It was extraordinary, and it doesn't mean that they can't get back, but the expectation that it would happen that way is not realistic. This team could get back there, but I think it's too early to bail on the team. They're in a dogfight, and let's see what they got.
The Rangers, when they started the year, I remember talking to you and I spoke, and I talked to Daniel and Jason, and Matt, and I said, listen, the Rangers are going to be a lot better. Are they going to be a postseason team? Maybe. Are they going to win the division? Maybe. But I think they're the type of team that fades as we get to September, sometime in August. Sure enough, that's what we're seeing. It's they're back to the pack a little bit, and we'll see where we're going. Seattle's been a surprise. They've been a little bit of a surprise, and they've come on, but you can't ever count them out, and they've done a good job with maximizing what they've got. And that takes us back to the Astros in the position you just referenced. They're used to being 7 or 8 games up by now. They're used to being able to have a lull, in the first week of September, first 2 weeks, last week of August, and come out of it. And what I see in this club is that they recognize it's different. They recognize they're fighting every night. They recognize they've come back to the pack a little bit. It doesn't mean they're a bad club, and it doesn't mean they're bad players. It means that this year is a different year. And so when they're in that, they need to understand the pressure is different. They feel it 30 days earlier than they usually do. And the media's got to understand that too. There's some significant, holes here that have to fill up, and not the least of which is the amount of usage some of these guys have had versus playing time, right? Versus rest. So, you had a short off season. We didn't go get any more pitching. We actually went down a couple of guys. Hunter Brown is starting to show fatigue. Javier, I saw him the other night. His release point's off. His land spot is off. He's scattering with breaking ball. The ball that Dominguez out of the park was a rolling slider, right? So we're not seeing the crispness, the arm speed, the execution out of these guys. And the media's got to be open to that. Somewhere along the line, Kim, we turned into some media having to agree with whatever is being said instead of understanding that, hey, you know what, something's off here, let's address it. And the relationship there has got to change a little bit. That said, this club is still very good. They could get there. I don't know that they're a World Series team. I don't know how this city is going to handle them not being a World Series team if they don't get there. It seems that on Twitter, which is Astros Twitter, is just an interesting place to live, I guess. I choose not to live there. It's an interesting place to live. But, at the end of the day, his club has a longer road ahead emotionally than the schedule may allow.
I think those are some great points. I'm talking with Jeremy Booth about where this Astros team is and what they might be able to do. And I think the question is, we just don't know. It doesn't mean it's over. It doesn't mean their season is a failure if they don't win another World Series. I think people need to understand that as well. Look at what this team has been through. When you and I've talked about this a bit, Jeremy, with just the injuries, you're without Altuve for a while. You're without Alvarez a few different times. You lose, Lance before the start of the season. You lose Luis Garcia. I mean, there's some holes. You go out and you get a Justin Verlander who hasn't necessarily been super healthy this entire season. You got Justin Verlander back, but they've been and they've had some other bumps and bruises. They've been banged up along the way. I think that has to be something that you have to look at when you think about how this team, the fact that they're even still here, instead of most people thinking they're here in spite of Dusty, I think that that's a little bit because of him. And I can be a little bit biased.
Yeah, the in spite of Dusty's ludicrous. I mean, he's a very good manager. He's done what he's done. The Diaz question is legitimate. That's a legit question. If you don't understand the deeper looking of the game, though, and you're just looking at the numbers, and I am a Diaz fan. I was never a Corey Lee fan. I was a Diaz fan. And when it comes to the balance those two have, they'll be back next year, both of them. They're both going to be back next year behind the plate. When it comes to, but the Dusty hate, if you will, let's get rid of it. This Jeff Luhnow, it's his team. It's not. This is not his team anymore. It's several years removed from being his team. And as a matter of fact, if you get deeper with the Astros, something we have talked about that I'll say here again, anybody that's listening, if you get deeper with them, they realize they have significant issues. They have significant issues in their scouting, which they're addressing, and significant issues in their player development, which they're addressing. What's happened is the city has only seen the big league club, which is great because that's all you watch, right? So you don't see what's underneath it. What happens is eventually that shows up. And when it last showed up was really 2017-ish. 2018, and what happened was Valdez showed up, or 2019 rather. Valdez showed up, Javier shows up in 20, and all of a sudden now this run that's starting to be over. Now here comes this Latin pitching, right? And here we go again, and we got another 4 years, and that's a really positive thing for what they've done as a collection of offices and personnel making these decisions. But it's not the same club it was. It's not the same team it was. We're not still stuck in 2014. We're not stuck in 2008. This is 2023. And there are adjustments that need to be made. This club now has to sink or swim with what they have. Now, they will, and they're professionals. And the best part about what they've been through before is that when they're not their best, they'll know how to achieve with it. Whether or not they execute enough to get it done, we'll see. It's a positive sign to see them get swept by the Yankees and then go into Texas and win. That's a positive sign. Okay. To me, they got to run with that momentum of keeping that intensity night in and night out, but that's the emotional component, right? Are they emotionally ready to do this 30 days in advance of the usual timing? So, we'll find out. The injury thing, if Stanek goes down, I kind of blame that on, I'll just say it, not using him enough. I think Ryan Stanek should have the ball a lot more often. I don't know why they stopped going to him last postseason. I don't know where that went. And it seems to have written itself throughout the year. And so hopefully he's fresh enough to recover and come back, as he's a guy that hasn't been used enough they need right now. They're going to need all those pieces on deck.
Talking with Jeremy Booth. Jeremy, I want to talk a little bit more about the Yainer Diaz, because I'm with you. How do you not like him, right? But when when you're around the club and when you look beyond just the numbers, there's so much more, obviously, for the guy behind the plate than just the numbers. If you got a catcher who's also a great offensive producer, you're really, really winning, right? That's not necessarily the most important thing. When you've got a JV who's not going to throw with anybody else, when you have Urquidy who says he thinks that, God sent, literally, he said this to another reporter, sent Maldi to him. When you have these guys that are these pitchers that feel like they can't do it without him, I know that there's got to start to be a change, but I don't know if people realize how much of a factor it's more of that than Dusty just saying, I don't want to play Yainer because I just love Maldi. If you could get the best of both worlds, he's clearly the catcher of the future. You'd like to see him more, but what do you do with your pitchers? Especially, they're temperamental. Let's be clear. And I know you've got to run the team, but how do you navigate that?
Well, with a guy like Verlander, who hasn't had no opportunity to get used to Diaz, and you need him to plug in and win, he gets Maldonado. That's just the way it works. When it comes to a Valdez or a Javier, as comfortable as they are with Martín Maldonado, they're still going to be here when Maldonado's not. Right? There has to be some kind of transition. What you could see is Diaz catch the first 7 innings and Maldonado finish the game, right? You could see something where, if there's an offensive adjustment and Diaz needs to hit on nights Maldonado plays, you don't keep running Maldi out there. You can see maybe other ways to manage it. But there's always a passing of the guard somewhere. No one's going to play forever, right? And so if the passing of the torch, changing of the guard, all that is what we're really discussing, then at some point these guys got to get on board with it. Now, doesn't mean right now. It just means that it has to get on board with it. It's hard to take away offensively what Diaz has done, and especially defensively what he has done. But at the same time, you got a comfort level. So it needs to be a little better balance. I don't envy Dusty with this decision. I'd give him Verlander. I would probably give him Urquidy. As long as Urquidy's back in the rotation, I'd give him Urquidy. But Javier and Valdez, I'd kind of transition over to Diaz, and I'd give him a couple days that he knows are just his. There's no language barrier there, right? You get Verlander's happy, and then the 5th day, you kind of come up for see what you got. Now, if Urquidy's the 5th day, then Diaz finds a way to DH, and Alvarez gets off the field, right? Or Diaz plays first base and Abreu sits, which even though you give him $20 million, if you got to take Diaz or Alvarez or Abreu's odd man out now. Right. So there's other rotation ways to handle this to keep guys fresh, because you're going to need them all in the postseason. And Diaz's bat can't be sitting in the postseason.
I think you make a great point. And I think that's one of the reasons, too, when we talk to, before the games, when we sit and we visit with Dusty, and he says just that I've got to keep guys fresh. I mean, clearly you're going to need them all. Then if somebody goes down and you haven't been using them, I think that has, plays into some of the decision making that he has. Stephanie says, numbers don't translate to the experience and leadership Maldi brings to the table, regardless of his lack of hitting. And that's really what Jeremy's saying too. How they navigate it, getting him in more. It's interesting. We've seen Yainer over at first base too. It's he's got some learning to do there. There are a few mental errors he's made. So there's a lot to all of it. It's not as easy as just saying who has the best hitting percentage. Let's put those guys out. And I think that's what's probably missing. Thank you, Stephanie. Welcome to the show. I'm with you. I don't envy Dusty's position, right? But this is where you become a Hall of Famer or not, by how you navigate times like this.
Well, they haven't done, and not to be negative, what they haven't done is a good enough job of getting Alvarez acclimated to playing first base. Right? If Alvarez can play first base, even in a rotation, he gets a day at first base, gets a day in left field, gets the rest of the time to the DH, you create other at-bats for Diaz in the DH role. You don't have to spend $20 million on Abreu, let's say, right? And McCormick's out there in left field as well. The balance is interesting, but ultimately McCormick should have about 20, and she hitting, what's he hitting, about 260, 270, somewhere in there. I mean, this is all off the top of my head. We looked up the other day, we saw Pena was hitting 260 again. Finally, he's got 15. That's plenty. You see Bregman's doing what he should do. That's about right. The numbers are showing up to where he should be. And you look at Alvarez and you find ways to do that. And Abreu is not there. You know, you look at Diaz at 20 yet? He was at 19
He is at
last
20,
year.
yeah.
So he's got 20. So now you've got 260 and 20 across the board. Those guys got to be in the lineup. The numbers are showing up, and now you have to increase their bats. Unfortunately, Maldonado needs to have a couple of guys he catches, and the first sign of offensive trouble, it is what it is. He's got to come out. That's where it stands.
Can we also just talk about, and you and I discussed it briefly the other day, just the greatness that is Jose Altuve. Every time I see him in his stature and just what he's able to do, and he hits the ball off his leg Friday night, and so he's a little gimpy. He doesn't, they take him out with the leg contusion. He gets in. He's in last night, and he hits, home runs in 2 innings. He's just dependable. I mean, he's just really good.
he's a professional, and ultimately, professionals separate themselves right now. I watched him work around the bag the other day on Sunday, which is usually an optional day for BP and work, and I watched him do it, and he turned it over 5-6 times full speed and moved on. Because he understands when he needs to play and he's ready to go. He also understands how to conserve his energy. So, guys like him and Bregman and even Tucker at this point, and they've been there, done that. Verlander's been there, done that. The whole club has actually been there. So, it's with that. I will say this: I watched these guys come out the dugout the other day, and they didn't want to be around anybody. They weren't being jerks about it. They were being very friendly and hey, what's up? How's it going? But all they wanted to do is go play baseball. And if these guys are going to achieve their goals of winning a World Series in 23, certainly having a deep playoff run, they're going to need to focus on playing baseball, because the way they're sitting right now, and this is just the entire league, they can go from winning the division to being out of the playoffs in a matter of days.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And a guy that we didn't talk about yet, Jeremy, before I let you go, I do appreciate you jumping in last minute, but it's Michael Brantley. How much does that help to have him back in the lineup if he can be healthy? I mean, he's been productive so far, but to be able to have him back and hopefully, he can stay.
I don't know yet. And I don't think anybody has the real answer yet, because he's such a professional as well. He's been around forever, but we don't know. We don't know if he's going to go down tomorrow. We don't know if he's back all the way. The hope for him and the club is that he can return to who he has been, or even a piece of that for the last month of the season and into the postseason. But we don't know. It's too early of a sample size. I would take my chances with him over Singleton in left-handed at bat situations. I would do that. But I don't know yet. And my hope is that, if he can provide some production in whatever role he's going to have, that'll help this club go into the postseason and potentially win it. So he's important. He's not here for nothing. He's an important piece.
He's an important piece, which is why they held on to him. I mean, all season it was like, is Brantley back? And then those are because of the team regulate. You just really stop asking, because when he can get back, he's going to get back, right? He was doing all he could. And you understand why they didn't give up on him, because he means so much. Even if he's not 100% of what he's been, if he can give you some of that, you're winning.
Yeah, so look, some moves you make, he's one of them that you make to see if you're going to get something out of it, because he's good for the ball club, he's good for the city, he's good for the, other ways besides just whether or not he's in the lineup. But ultimately, he's got to come in and hit. And if he does that, he relieves some of the pressure on Abreu and some of the other guys who haven't produced at a clip that I think the Astros envisioned when they signed him.
Jeremy Booth, I appreciate you, my friend. Any final thoughts before you head out? And what are you looking for in the rest of this series with the Rangers before they come back home to take on, I think, the Padres this weekend?
Well, I'll leave it with this. Momentum is real, and you got to have momentum to be able to capitalize on the good emotion and ride through. So the Astros need to pretty step on the gas with Texas the next couple of days, because they have a club in San Diego that's beaten down, and they can turn around and turn that sweep into the Yankees into 6 in a row. So hopefully that's what they do.
All right. Jeremy Booth, my friend, thank you. I appreciate you hopping in. I'll talk to you. Will I see you this weekend at the ballpark?
I'll be there.
All right. Have a good one. Thank you so much. Jeremy Booth, our baseball insider here for Chalk Talk. Appreciate him joining us. Always has great insight, and I'm with him. I just have to stay away from not just Astros Twitter, but even other of my, I guess, colleagues that talk about baseball that just don't look at all that goes into it. Like Stephanie said, it's not just about the numbers. It's all of the other parts of it too. And that's what matters. And for those with the Dusty hate, you got to miss me on that, right? You don't have to agree. None of us have to agree with every move that he makes. But that Dusty hate is just silly. It's just foolishness. All right. We are you're listening to Chalk Talk. Thank you for, of course, being a part of today's show. Thank you, Sanseria. Thank you, guys. Listen, I have been keeping an eye on the match. I mentioned Coco won the first set, and they're in a commercial now, so I can't tell you, but I think she may be up 2-1 in the second. In the quarterfinals, and I'm excited about the match tonight as well. You're right, Reginald H. This has been a great U.S. Open. It's been great for tennis. It's been great for the Americans. And there are a lot of players to keep your eye on. Madison Keys is still alive on the women's side. Of course, Coco's playing. I mentioned Francis Tiafoe and Ben Shelton. If you've been watching tennis for a while, you may remember a player, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, Brian Shelton. I think Brian played at Georgia Tech, and then he had some time on the tour. Well, Ben Shelton is Brian's son. And Brian is also coaching him. So I got a chance to, back when, there was another player, Malavia Washington and Brian Shelton were around in the same time. And so got a chance to see and know them then, but it's really cool to see what they're doing. It's cool to see what they're doing with what he's doing with his son, Ben. So that's super exciting. And listen, Stephanie, welcome to the show. I'm with you. We do lots of Astro stuff here. I cover the team, and how do you just not love Dusty and what he does, right? How do you just not love Dusty and what he's meant for this team? And I am one of the ones who will say, I think the Astros are in the hunt now because of Dusty. I mean, if you just look at what they've had to manage this year, what he's had to manage with all of the injuries, like losing two of your starting pitchers for the entire season. You lose your ace from last year before the season because, they don't sign him and he goes to the Mets. So really, you start off with you had three starters that aren't here to start the season. And one of them was a Cy Young Award winner. I mean, that's a whole lot, right? Oh, yeah. And don't forget, then they, of course, have been without Michael Brantley. You lose Altuve to start the season. You're without Alvarez a couple different times. You've had others banged up. You lose Urquidy for a while. Yeah, it's just been tough. It's been a lot. That's a part of the game, but it's how you get through those parts that determine if you are here now. Oh, yes, and thank you, Reginald H., for reminding me about Taylor Townsend. She also, although she lost in singles, she's still alive in doubles and mixed doubles, which is really where she has been kind of hanging her hat. But she had a really good match, and it's good to see her playing so well. Coco's match now, she's up 3-2 in the third. Ostapinko has kind of found herself a bit, and so they're really on serve. And I just hopefully they'll get through it, and Coco gets out of it in 2 sets. She's fit enough to play 3 sets, but why play 3 when if you can win it in 2? So listen, I'm gonna hop over and talk a little bit about the Houston Texans, right? I let you hear from DeMeco and his wife Jamila as they were getting ready for the season. I talked to them last week at the Texans premiere event, but this week is the first week where the games really count. They all matter because it helps you know who's what you have, how you're doing in terms of how you play. All those things really, really do matter. But now it counts, right? These games count. And they open the season on the road in Baltimore against Lamar Jackson, who is probably very renewed and refreshed. He's got a new offense. He's got new offensive weapons and a defense that has always been a really solid defense. It is a tough task. And for this team to go into Baltimore and win. I say that to say anything can happen. It doesn't mean they cannot win, but I would say don't jump off the bandwagon just yet if it doesn't turn out to be a victory for the Texans in week 1 on the road in Baltimore. Here are my concerns. Mike, I'm really concerned about the offensive line. It was a unit that we thought might have really taken a step forward until we found out that it really hadn't. Okay. A few things happened in the offseason. They re-signed Laramie Tunzel, gave him a bag full of money. I'm okay with that. Arguably the best left tackle in baseball. You need him to protect this young quarterback. They extended Titus Howard, the right tackle, a guy who's come to worked hard since he entered the building. And I guess it was a 2019 or the 2019 draft, and has played really hard. Got injured during training camp, and he's no longer wearing the cast or anything on his hand. I saw him yesterday over at the facility. Who knows when he's going to get back? Probably, if not this weekend, in the next couple of weeks, week or two, we will have to see. I think he is day to day. They signed Shaq Mason in the offseason. But here's where the concern comes. Kenyon Green, first round pick from last year, who had a hard season, had a hard rookie season, right? He's an Aggie, and as am I, but he had a tough go of it last year, right? And so I was curious to see how he would enter 2023. So saw him in OTAs, saw him come into training camp, and was like, I'm not real sure if he's taking that next step just in terms of, fitness and the whole 9 yards. Well, let's fast forward. He did get a little banged up, but he showed up. He was there working at camp. And then we find out last week when they make the cuts that he has been placed on IR for the season. And so the general manager, Nick Caserio, says, well, we knew back in May it wasn't a matter of if, but when. Let's just put a pin in that. What do you mean? What? So a couple reasons that that's really concerning. One is, why would you put that kid through that, or that young man, if you knew he had some injury that he needed to get taken care of? Why put him through? Let him get to work and start getting it fixed, right? Why have him go through, the summer and the mini camps and then training camp only to say, yeah, we kind of knew this was going to happen. So that's one thing. Not great for the young man, but really not great for the team. So what's your contingency? What's your backup plan? Because left guard is important. That guard, that interior lineman position is super important. What's your plan? Okay, you signed Dieter, but then you cut him, so you had to bring him back. And I'm a little concerned. I'm more than a little concerned. I am definitely concerned about the offensive line, especially with a rookie quarterback. All right. So I don't care how good CJ Stroud is. I don't care if you've been able to get Bryce Young. A rookie quarterback is going to be a rookie. Okay. I think Stroud is the guy. I think he's going to have he's got a lot of upside. I think he's going to be a really good NFL pro. But you don't want to damage him in the first season. You don't want to David Carr him in his rookie year. And if you follow the Texans and been around it all, you guys remember Carr? I mean, he came in, and I wonder sometimes, what would his career have been like? What kind of player would he have been had he not come into the situation with the Texans where he was just beat down because there was no protection? And I'm not saying that that's where they are. Okay, this line is not that line. But my point is this. To say that I'm disappointed that Nick Caserio hasn't done a better job is an understatement. And it's definitely a concern. All right. I did, we had a chance to talk. Now they're back on the regular this is the regular schedule for the season. So Monday you get coach, locker room's open. You may or may not get some players. Game plan goes in technically Wednesday. And then you get to talk to coach and CJ and other players, open locker room. Thursday, we get the coordinators in locker room. And then Friday, you get DeMeco in locker room. So yesterday, we got a chance to talk to DeMeco Ryans. And I did ask him, if anything, what, if anything, keeps him up at night in this week as they're heading into the start of the season. And here's what he said.
But it's just making sure our guys go out and operate with precision. Making sure our guys just play as one. It's one thing I've been preaching all off season. It's just us, like team first, being a team. Nothing to do with the individual. Don't worry about individual accolades, but we're going to be successful, right, when everybody plays together as one single unit. So for us, I just want to see us go out and play complementary football, all three phases in sync, being where we're supposed to be, being accountable, being trustworthy to each other, right, and playing with that enthusiasm and fire that I truly believe in that ignites the team.
That's what he said. If anything keeps him up at night, it's that, right? And one last thing before we go, I didn't let you hear from Dusty because Jeremy jumped on with us, which is awesome. But Stephanie, if you're here, here's a little sound from Dusty. Talk to him during the last homestand, just about, headed into September, being in this race, where they are, and just how he feels about things. And here is what Dusty had to say about that.
You feel good about it. It's like a car race. There's 3 cars right now vying for the lead. So, you want it to be us. Hopefully, some of the guys are preserved. They were preserved by injury. Some, namely, guys like Altuve and Brantley and Jordan, which you're seeing Jordan, getting the stroke now. So hopefully this will carry us to the end. You just want to play good, consistent baseball and winning baseball. And most of my teams that I've had have been fairly successful, if not very successful in September. So hopefully this will be the same.
Mike.
Dusty, the Dusty Baker. All right. Stephanie says rough start for sure. I think you're right, Stephanie. A lot of fans, and I talked about it may have been before you jumped on, I think Astros fans are a little spoiled. You go to 5 or 6 ALCSs in a row and you think this is just how it is. This team was losing 100 games this season not too long ago, and they have really turned it around, and to become a perennial competitor is impressive. And so it says something about the way the organization is built. Whatever you think of Jim Crane, you got to give him credit because he came in and he did some things with this team that people didn't really think could be done. And so now here they are. So before we get out of here, I want to remind you of a couple of things. Remember to support I Love Jinka. There's going to be, and I'm not sure, Kim will drop it and tell me if it started yet. There's going to be a healthy living sale coming up on Jinka products, the capsules at HEB. So while you can go to the website at ilovejinka.com and order it from anywhere in the country, if you're in Texas and they're in HEB, you'll be able to go into HEB and get the product, get the capsules with a discount. So that's super important. We ask you to support the people who support us. So make sure that you are getting yourself all ready with I Love Jinka. Listen, here's the other thing. COVID is out. It's still around. It's not over. And so anything you can do to shore up your immune system is important. And whether it's from that, whether it's because it's been so hot and we're in and out of the cold, if you've got nasally stuff happening, if you've got inflammation in your joints, any of that stuff, you need some Jinka in your life. And the great thing is when they have the Jinka and you can get it with the healthy living discounts. So super, super cool. Encourage you to support I Love Jinka. Stephanie says every game down the stretch now is so important. Hoping October experience shines through this month. I'm with you, Stephanie. I do as well. You do. And even as media, you get a little spoiled. You just know that the team you cover is going to be in postseason, which has been great living in Houston because for the past few years, I also cover the Texans and I cover the Rockets. And there's been no postseason in sight for either of those teams. So it's really been all about the Houston Astros, and they have come through in a major way. So hoping that they are able to shine in September. And as Jeremy said, roll into October with some momentum, and we will see what happens. Listen, we are out of time for today, but thank you guys so much for being a part of Chalk Talk. Stephanie, welcome to the Chalk Talk family. I hope that you'll come back. We're here each and every week, usually on Tuesdays at 11, today at 11:30. The latest, the update from the match at the U.S. Open. Coco is up 5-2 in the third. So she's double faulted a bit. She's not serving great. She's serving right now. And she's down love 30 in this service game. So hey, welcome. Joel Matthias, and it's always good to have you, late or not. You want to go back and check out what you missed. Had Jeremy Booth on talking baseball with us. It was super exciting. He's really that's what he does. He's really plugged in. So we talked some baseball. We obviously talked about Texans, and I'm kind of peeking back and forth at the U.S. Open with Coco Gauff up 5-2 in the second set. She could serve for them. She's serving for the match. She's down 15-30 in this match. I won't give you play-by-play, but if you've never really peeked into tennis, I will tell you the U.S. Open is a great thing to tune into. If you can't watch it now, maybe you're at work, maybe you're moving around, try to catch the match tonight with Frances Tiafoe and Ben Shelton. It promises to be a doozy. All right. So we are out of time for today. As always, thank you for being a part of the show. Thank you for supporting Chalk Talk. Remember, if you are not registered to vote, get registered. If you stay registered, you don't have to worry about it. Get registered to vote. I never tell you who you should vote for, but I'm always going to be on you about being registered and fulfilling that responsibility. Right? Privilege is a responsibility to vote. Vote your values, vote what matters to you and your family and your community. But if you're not registered, you can't do that. So make sure that you vote. And remember, do something kind for yourself and do something kind for somebody else. And just in case you didn't know, somebody said this, Kimmy Treats is my company. I am Kimmy Treats. So make sure you go to KimmyTreats.com and place your order. And if you're looking for Jinka, here's where you find it at HEB.
Here at HEB, in the Healthy Living Department of Probiotics, you can find Jinka 7 days a week.
Yep. Look at that Jinka sale. Look at that Jinka.
All right, everybody, make it a great, great week. I hope that you'll do something kind and good for yourself. I'm glad that you love Kimmy Treats. I love Kimmy Treats too. And I love all you guys for being a part of the Chalk Talk family. Make it a great week, everybody. See y'all.